Allie.
What? No.
Everybody please stand and worship with us. Things are getting real, Jesus take the wheel. Only way I'm getting to the other side. Days are getting dark, life's a little hard. Blinded but I'm trying not to lose sight. I don't got this, I know you got this. Yeah, yeah, yeah. And I believe it before I see it. Yeah, yeah, yeah. I know you're gonna see me through it. If anybody can, you can do it. Gotta know in the trial and the pain, fire and the rain, you're gonna see me through it. Gonna see me through it. If anybody can, you can do it. And whenever my hope runs away, you save the day, you're gonna see me through it. When the sky falls, who am I gonna call? The one who put it up there in the first place. Full-scale attack, devil on my back. Better lace them up and go put on my game face. I don't got this, I know you got this. Yeah, yeah, yeah. And I believe it before I see it. Yeah, yeah, yeah. I know you're gonna see me through it. If anybody can, you can do Our God is bigger than all our problems, the only one who knows how to solve them. So if you're sitting in the back, rock bottom, prayers in the air if you got them. Our God is bigger than all our problems, the only one who knows how to solve them. So if you're sitting in the back, rock bottom, prayers in the air, 'cause I know you're gonna see me through it. If anybody can, you can do it. Gotta know in the trouble and the plain fire and the rain, you're gonna see me through it. You're gonna see me through it. If anybody can, you can do it. And whenever my hope runs away, you save the day, you're gonna see me through it. Yeah, 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 I know you're gonna see me through it.
Hey, good morning, everyone. Just a couple quick announcements. One, out in the hallway, there's a bunch of protein bars, some dish soap, different things. Those are in the giveaway, so if you need those, just feel free. Take it on your way out, or even if you just use it, go ahead and grab some. So that's all stuff that's just filling up the donations, and we'd love to be able to give it to you. Also, this Thursday is the first kids' night here on campus, and so we are so excited. And as I mentioned last week, if you want to help out with that, either in the kitchen with food or just helping out with the game times and wrangling the kids, feel free to come talk to Connie and Mike or myself and Allie, and we will love to have you help out. And I think that is it. I'm going to hand it back over to the band. Yep, so for those of you who didn't hear, baptisms, hopefully in a month from now, we'll be doing baptisms. So if you're interested in getting baptized, or maybe you think your kids might be interested, come talk with us, meet with us, and we'll be able to talk more. Thanks.
Try to tell me I'm forgotten and I've fallen too far from his hands, but I know what kind of God he is, and I'm trusting in his promises, believing, and I'm singing, yes he can. Did he move every mountain? Did he part every sea? Yes he did. Yes he can. Did he defeat the for miles and miles. If you've been hearing the same old voice tell the same old lies, if you're trying to fill the same old holes inside, well, there's a better life. Oh, there's a better life. If you've got pain, oh, he's a pain taker. If you feel lost, oh, he's a way maker. If you need freedom or saving, he's a prison shaking savior. If you've got chains, well, he's a chain breaker. We all search for the light of day and the dead of night, and we've all found ourselves worn out from the same old fight. And we've all run to things we know just ain't right. When there's a better life, oh, there's a better life. If you've got pain, oh, he's a pain taker. If you feel lost, oh, he's a way maker. If you need freedom or saving, he's a prison shaking savior. If you've got chains, oh, he's a chain breaker. If you believe it, if you receive it, if you can feel it, somebody testify. If you believe it, if you receive it, if you can feel it, somebody testify, testify. If you believe it, if you receive it, if you can feel it, somebody testify. If you got pain, oh, he's a pain taker. If you feel lost, oh, he's a way maker. If you need freedom or saving, well, he's a prison shaking savior. If you got chains, well, he's a chain breaker. If you need freedom or saving, well, he's a prison shaking savior. If you got chains, well, he's a chain breaker.
All right, adults, please meet, greet, and shake hands. And junior church, you are dismissed.
No matter where I go, your love is with me. I climbed the highest height and you were there. Why should I be afraid? You go before me. You've seen my darkest night and you weren't scared. 'Cause you never flinch and you never change. Your spirit goes before me as you light my way. Wherever I go, I know you go there with me. You meet me on the mountain and you find me goes before me as you light my way. Wherever I go, I know you go there with me. You meet me on the mountain and you find me in the valley. Wherever I go, I know you go there with me. I love you in the breakthrough and I trust you in the mystery. 'Cause you are wherever I go. You are wherever I go. You are wherever I go. Wherever I go. You are wherever I go. You are wherever I go. You are wherever I go. Wherever I go. You are wherever I go. You are wherever I go. You are wherever I go. Wherever I go. Wherever I go, I know you go there with me. You meet me on the mountain and you find me in the valley. Wherever I go, I know you go there with me. I love you in the breakthrough and I trust you in the mystery. 'Cause you are wherever I go. You are wherever I go. You are wherever I go. Wherever I go. You are wherever I go. You are wherever I go. You are wherever I go. Wherever I go. Look into the cross, you capture life for us, keeping me in mind. On that tree you died, 3 days further on, the rising of the sun. Seasons change, but your love still remains. And I just wanna say thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you. You are faithful, God, and you're always for me. And I just wanna say thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you. All my praise is yours, I give you glory. You made a home in me, and Lord, you never leave. You meet me where I'm at, guiding every step. We'll never part our ways. My heart, your dwelling place, is you and me and you forever. And I just wanna say thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you. You are faithful, God, and you're always for me. And I just wanna say thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you. All my praise is yours, I give you glory. You have saved me, and I will praise you, friend forever. Jesus, thank you.
Hey, good morning, everyone. I know there's some faces out there today that I don't recognize, so I'm Alan. I am the new associate pastor here as of, I guess, October. And welcome. We're so glad that you're here on this rainy day. I know I saw many of you coming in at least partially soaked, if not totally. So thank you for braving the rain this morning. But this morning, we're going to be talking about meat sacrificed to idols. And you're probably thinking, okay, well, that's not really an issue that I have to deal with today. But it was a huge issue in the first century of the church with all the apostles and all that. So I want to talk about that, and I want to open up by talking about knowledge, right? Because knowledge can hurt, right? Not all knowledge is helpful to us, is it? I'm sure all of us know someone, if we haven't experienced it ourselves, who was in a relationship with someone, that relationship ends, right? Maybe not, it was not your choice. And then a week or a month or 2 months later, like, I just want to get on his Instagram or his Facebook, just check out, see how he's doing, or I just want to drive past her house, see how she's doing. I'm just going to call her, right? And what do we do in those situations? We say, no, don't do it, right? Like, there's no knowledge that you could gain here that would be helpful for you right now because you're not ready for it, right? Sometimes knowledge just isn't the best thing, right? Sometimes that knowledge can hurt, right? In fact, when I was first moved out after high school and went out west, I had a deal with my mom where, after the first couple of weeks that we've been out there, she said, stop telling me everything you're doing. I don't want to know if you're going out camping in, the middle of the mountains and you saw bears and mountain lions, right? That just makes me worry more. So you can tell me about it after you got home safe and share the pictures with me, but just leave out all the stuff that's going to make me worry. I don't need that knowledge. I don't want that knowledge, right? Because all it's just going to do is to make her worry. So what do I do? The deal was I'd tell my dad, right? My dad could handle that, and he would decide whether to tell me, no, you're an idiot, don't do that, right? And I just wouldn't tell my mom. So, food sacrificed to idols, right? We're going to be talking out of 1 Corinthians 8. So if you guys have your Bible or want to look it up on your phone, you can follow along. But this entire letter so far, Paul has been kind of smacking around the Christians at the Corinthian church, right? He's writing this letter, and he's building this case. He's dealing with a lot of sin issues, a lot of problems. And in 1 Corinthians 6:12, he says something really important, which is this. All things are lawful for me, but not all things are profitable. All things are lawful for me, but I will not be mastered by anything. He's making the point that it's all about how you use things, whether they're good or bad. Right? It's all about how you use things. There's nothing that is inherently bad in and of itself that God has created. Right? For a good example of this is glue, right? Glue is a perfectly good tool. We can use it to fix all sorts of things, to make all sorts of things. And when we're using glue as it's intended, right, it's a great thing. But if I'm going around buying glue so I can huff it, right, I'm not mastering the glue is mastering me, right? It's not the glue that's sinful, it's me, right? It's how I use it. I either use it to build or I use it to tear down myself. Right? So as we're jumping in to this, a little more background is food sacrificed to idols or meat sacrificed to idols. In the Corinthian church, they had some really big pagan temples. And so people would come from all over, sacrifice the animals at the temple, and then the leftover meat would get brought down to the meat market. Well, then that meat, since it was used in a sacrifice, right, it had a double purpose. So a lot of times they discount it, right? So you go to the meat market, and let's say you're looking for a good ribeye. You go to one stand, right? You're paying, 20 shekels, and then the stand right next to it is only 10, right? So the meat that was sacrificed to the idol a lot of times can be a lot cheaper. So the argument that was going on was some people saying, hey, look, if I want to honor God with my money, I'm going to use it well, right? I'm going to spend my money in a way that lets me keep more of it so I can help more people, right? If I'm saving a lot of money, that means I can feed more people, right? I'll have more left over to do good and charity with.
But then other people on the other side were saying, no, you can't do that, right? You're participating in occult practices, right? You are worshiping false gods every time you eat this meat that was sacrificed to an idol, right? And so Paul is going to just dive right in the middle of this debate. And if you want to read more about this, Paul goes through this discussion in Galatians. He goes through this discussion in Romans 14. So this is a major, major discussion that's brought up a few times in the New Testament. And we're actually going to reference a couple other things that Paul says. But he opens up and he says this. He says, now concerning things sacrificed to idols, we know that we all have knowledge, right? All of us have knowledge. Knowledge makes arrogant, but love edifies. There's another translation that translates it, knowledge puffs up, right? Knowledge puffs up, but love lifts up, right? So knowledge makes arrogant, but love edifies. If anyone supposes that he knows anything, he is not yet known as he ought to know. But if anyone loves God, he is known by him. So what does this mean? First off, right, we see it right there. Not all knowledge is bad, right? We all have knowledge. If Paul thought knowledge was bad, why would he be writing a letter to educate all these Christians and give them knowledge, right? So we know knowledge is a bad thing. He's opening up by saying, hey, we all have it. But, right, if you don't have love with your knowledge, what is it going to do? It's going to make you arrogant, right? And knowledge should be used to help lift other people and encourage other people. But if you don't have that love with your knowledge, what's going to happen? Right? You're going to become arrogant. So we all know somebody that's like this, right? Whether it's somebody who has had a fancy education and has a bunch of letters behind their name, right, that just thinks that they deserve more things from more people just because of the letters behind their name. They deserve a special sort of treatment because of what they know, right? But it's not just that, right? We have all participated in activity, a sport, a job, where there is some person there who's been around for a while, knows a lot, right? And uses what they know instead of to help and mentor the newbies that are coming in, they use their knowledge to push them down and make fun of them. What, you don't know that? How long have you been here? You don't know that's so easy, that's so simple, right? And so they know a lot, instead of using their knowledge to help and to guide and to encourage other people, they're just using it to hurt others, right? And so we need, our knowledge needs to be directly connected to our love. But before we go any farther, I wanted to talk about knowledge and what is the basis of knowledge. And about 350 years before this was written, there was a guy named Socrates, if you guys have seen Bill and Ted's Most Excellent Adventure. Socrates, right? Famous Greek philosopher. And the Oracle of Delphi said to him that he was the wisest man in all of Athens. And the reason that he was the most wise in Athens, right, wasn't because of what he knew, but was because he was the only one who admitted that he knew nothing, right? He understood that there is natural doubt and issues with knowing anything, right? Unless you have a foundation for your beliefs, then you can't be absolutely 100% sure of anything, right? Until you know that your foundation is secure on which you build everything you believe and know, you don't actually know anything, do you? So Paul says the same thing, right? He says, if anyone supposes that he knows anything, he has not yet known as he ought to know. So Paul here is agreeing with Socrates. He's saying, if you think you know anything, if any of you guys think you are wise or you know a lot of stuff, you're wrong. Sorry, you don't know it. You don't know it. In fact, this is probably part of what Paul's referring to. Proverbs 1:7, fear of the Lord is the beginning of knowledge. The Psalms say, fear of the Lord is the beginning of wisdom, right? If you want to know anything, that knowledge has to be based in God, right? Because if God didn't create the world and design it, then we really can't know anything, can we? We can't know anything. Because even if we're relying completely on science, right? what are we relying on? We're relying on our senses, right? And if we're relying on our senses to tell us truth from falsehood, well, gosh, that's not a very good way to know all truth, right? Because all of us have been deceived by our senses, haven't we? Right? And if you guys have seen The Matrix, right? We could be in a computer program, right? Or there could be magic, and we're under a magic illusion, right? And everything we think is real isn't. So we need God to establish, yes, you're in reality, and based off of you knowing that I am real, you know that there is truth. You can have knowledge. So in other words, in order to know anything, you need to know two things, right? The two things you need to know in order to know anything is who God is and who you are in relation to who God is. All right? So if you want to know anything, that knowledge needs to be based in who God is and who you are. Right? And that's what he's saying, right? But if anyone loves God, right, he is known by him. So Paul is rooting, hey, if you want to know anything, you need to be humble enough to acknowledge the only way you know anything is through God. It's not because you're so great, it's because God gave you that gift. Right? So, what about love, right? So, now we kind of covered the basis of our knowledge, but what about the basis of our love? Well, the golden rule is a good place to start, right? Teacher, which is the great commandment in the law. He said to him, you shall love the Lord your God with all your heart, with all your soul, and with all your mind. This is the great and foremost commandment, and the second is like it, or the second actually produces from it. You shall love your neighbor as yourself. On these two commandments depend the whole law and the prophets. In fact, 1 John, I think, says this even more clearly. Beloved, let us love one another, for love is from God, and everyone who loves is born of God and knows God, right? Knowing God and loving God are what? Connected, right? The one who does not love does not know God, for God is love. In this is love, not that we loved God, but that God loved us and sent his Son to be the propitiation for our sins. So in other words, the reason that we love is because God showed us what love is, and through the love that God showed us, we know how to love others. All right? And without that knowledge of God, without basing our love out of God, our love is aimless. Our love is purposeless. You know, it's like, you know, trying to pin the tail on the donkey, right? You're blindfolded. Sometimes you'll hit it, but sometimes you'll miss, right? Just think about something like nationalism, right? Love of nation. I think it's a good thing to love the place that you're from and the people that are in the area that you're from, and loving the people that have the same customs and culture that you do and love the same things that you do. I think that's a good thing, right? But we don't base that love in what we know about God and that God created everyone in his image and we should love everyone equally, right? Then we're going to start to think, hey, do you know what? Maybe the way that I live and the people who live like me, maybe we're, you know, the best. This is the best. I love this more than anything else. And so what does it lead to? It leads to war, right? And so if love isn't rooted in God, then it just goes the wrong way, right? One of the big mantras of our culture today is what? Love is love, right? As long as you're feeling love, it's okay, right? Well, no, that's obviously wrong. There's no way that's true, because right now, if I stopped feeling all the lovey-dovey feelings for my wife and my kids, and, you know, I fell in love with, you know, some 21-year-old and ran off with her, would you say that that's a loving thing to do? No. Just because you have the feelings associated with love does not mean that love is actually love if it's not rooted in who God is and what he tells us and how he tells us we are supposed to live. Love is not love if it is not rooted in who God is. All right, so remember the meat sacrifice to idols? Remember that's what we're talking about? Well, so we're kind of jumping back into that. And so the next thing Paul says, therefore, concerning the things sacrificed to idols, right? He's bringing us back in. He's taking us back to there. What's the truth? What's the truth about meat sacrificed to idols? Well, we've got a big section of verses here, so I'm just going to summarize it for you. What's the truth about it? Can we eat it or can't we? Right? Well, he opens up and he says there's only one God, right? And there's many false gods, right? So even if meat is sacrificed to a false God, it's a false God. It's not a true God, right? And we exist for, from, by, and through God. So everything about our existence comes out of God and returns to God and is through God. And then 3, food is just food, right? God created everything. He created us. Food is just food, and it neither draws us closer nor separates us from God. Food is food. There's nothing special about food. So if you're living in that time, you're reading this part of the letter, you probably got pretty excited. You're like, ha, I knew I was right. All right, there we go. I can eat this meat. You were wrong to judge me. How dare you? Right? But Paul doesn't stop there either, right? That's the truth, right? The truth is food is just food. Yeah, if you want to eat the meat sacrificed to idols, there's nothing wrong with that. There's nothing wrong with that. But Paul doesn't stop there. He says, however, not all men have this knowledge, but some, being accustomed to the idol until now, eat food as if it were sacrificed to an idol. They're not eating it just as food, but they're eating it as a part of that idol, right? They're essentially fearing and worshiping that idol when they eat it, right? And their conscience being weak is defiled, right? So there we are, right? And so then he says this, but take care that this liberty of yours does not somehow become a stumbling block to the weak, right? So if we jump all the way down, this is his conclusion. Therefore, if food causes my brother to stumble, I will never eat meat again so that I will not cause my brother to stumble. Right? That's the conclusion. Therefore, because of the fact that I'm allowed, I have freedom, I'm completely within my rights to eat that meat, if that meat is going to cause someone I know to sin or to stumble or to be hurt, I'll never eat meat again. Now, that's hard, right? If God called me to never eat meat again, man, that would be a struggle for me, right? Saying like, okay, so no steak, right? No fried chicken, right? No pork roast, right? No ribs. What about fish? I'm a big fan of shellfish, so mussels and clams, right? None of that, no shrimp, nothing. Right? That would hurt. That's a big sacrifice, and that's the love that Paul has for his fellow man, his fellow Christians, that he is willing to sacrifice a huge part of his life, right? Even though he's completely within his rights to do it, in order to help them, in order to lift them up. And this brings us back to the beginning, right? This is why he opened up with that knowledge puffs up, but love lifts up. He said, just because you know something, just because you have freedom, just because you have rights, does not mean that that is the right decision, right? Just because you have rights does not make it right. And that's hard, right? That is a really hard thing, because I know that that's something that in our culture as Americans, we're like, well, I have the right to do it. I'm going to do it. You know, you just need to be better. You just need to be better and not stop me from exercising my rights. But that's not the picture that Paul paints at all, right? In fact, when he's talking about this, what he's saying is, well, do these rules apply outside of just meat sacrifice to idols? And I would say yes, I think they do, right? And so for today, if we're going to apply this to our context right here, right now, right? Let's talk addiction, right? That's something that all of us have dealt with in some form or some manner, right? And if we haven't dealt with it, we know someone that is, right? So if you have a friend who has been struggling as an alcoholic for years and years, or maybe even they just decided, you know what, I'm going to get this under control. They came over for dinner. Would you pop open a bottle of wine with dinner? Right? Would you get a beer out and say, hey, you want one? No, how cruel would you have to be to just exercise your right, to be able to partake in that? No, you're not loving your friend. You're not loving your brother. In fact, it goes deeper than that. Even if you never offered it to them, right? even if you know just drinking that in front of them may hurt them, you shouldn't do it, right? Another good example is dieting, right? So if you have a friend who says, I'm trying to get in good shape, I'm trying to start a diet, but, I'm just a sucker for McDonald's French fries. Every time I smell them, I just get that craving, and it's just near impossible for me to overcome. So they invite you over for a board game night, and you come over and you say, oh, hey, I was starving on the way over here, so I grabbed 2 large McDonald's fries. You don't mind if I eat this around you, do you? Right? No, you're just hurting. You're not loving your neighbor well at all. But that doesn't just apply to, food and drink. It applies to all sorts of things like, video games or social media or movies or TV shows, right? It applies to modesty, right? A lot of times we hear in the discussion around modesty today in the world, it's like, well, I am not responsible for anyone else's thoughts, right? They have to get their own thoughts in order, right? Okay, yeah, that's true, right? No one is responsible for someone else's thoughts or behavior, right? But if you're intentionally putting stumbling blocks in someone's way and then laughing when they fall, how is that helpful? How is that loving? Right? And that's not just women, that's men too, right? A lot of men are braggadocious and arrogant in the way that they act and speak and dress, which is the same immodesty, right? Think about symbolically, right? Some people really struggle around certain holidays or things because they associate it with old lifestyles or old practices, right? Or, these are kind of older things, but I remember growing up, right? Drums and rock and roll music and dancing, right? There was an old joke that I heard in high school, which is, Baptists are afraid of sex because they're afraid it might lead to dancing, right? Because they just are adding to that. They're just like, you can't dance. That dancing is the worst thing ever, right? And so, if that's going to be a stumbling block to them, then don't do it. But what are some lessons to be learned, right? First, notice the weaker brother is never condemned, right? He's never condemned in his ignorance, right, in his weakness. But rather, right, it's just assumed that they're going to get stronger. They're going to get wiser. They're going to get more knowledgeable, right? So our ignorance makes us weaker, not stronger. So if you find yourself in that weaker brother category, do you know what you should do? You should seek to overcome that. That shouldn't be a perpetual state, right? You should seek to get to know God and His law and your freedoms better and better and better. So even if you're not able to exercise all of them in the same freedom as other people, at least you can overcome a lot of the weaker brother and being offended and stopping other Christians from living out, right? But also notice the stronger brother, all the responsibility is put on him, right? None of the responsibility is put on the weaker brother. It is the responsibility of the stronger brother to use his knowledge to love and to serve, right? We're all called to love and to serve, right? In fact, the only responsibility that's given to the weaker brother isn't even given here. Paul says in another passage that the weaker brother, just don't ask, right? If you're over at someone's house and they made you a great, hamburger, don't violate your conscience by being like, oh, you didn't get this from the idol market, did you? Right? What you don't know doesn't hurt you, right? So don't go seeking out knowledge that's going to hurt you. This is like what we talked about with, calling up your ex-boyfriend or checking, your ex-girlfriend's Instagram, right? The only knowledge you're going to find out is going to be stuff that's going to hurt you, right? So the only responsibility that the weaker brother has is to not ask, and everything else goes on the stronger brother, right? And the final point is, I just realized I got 1, 1, and 2 instead of 1, 2, and 3. But lesson number 3 is what I call tyranny of the weaker brother. And I stole that from R.C. Sproul, who's an awesome preacher. And if you want to look up that sermon, it's on YouTube. He goes into this a lot deeper and more eloquently than I can. But he talks about the idea of there's some people that use their weakness, right, to lord it over other people. Like the Pharisees with Jesus, right? They were just trying to make up rules and add rules so that they could use those things to control other people's behavior. Right? So if you find yourself just constantly be offended by other Christians, or you want to call out a Christian on something, but you're not sure why it's wrong, maybe take a step back, right? Maybe think, am I actually offended by this because this is something a Christian shouldn't do? Or am I adding something to the gospel? Am I adding something to what God said? Right? This is a good example of like the drums and the rock and roll music and the dancing, right? We all know those things aren't necessarily wrong, right? And we can see how people might be offended by those things. But as soon as someone says, if you dance, you're not a Christian, right? Or if you play drums and worship music, you're not a Christian, right? As soon as those things, that's the tyranny of the weaker brother. They're adding things to the gospel that are not there, right? The only thing you need to be a Christian is to trust that Jesus is your Savior, that he died on the cross, and that he rose again 3 days later. If you add anything to that, then you are participating in the tyranny of the weaker brother. Right? And as I said earlier, our weakness is something that should be overcome. In the next chapter, Paul has this phrase that he says that he will become all things to all men so that he might save some. Right? So if we're in that position of weaker brother in an area, we should be seeking to overcome that so that we can go to places that we couldn't previously go, so that we can reach people that we couldn't previously reach, right? So that we might lead some of them back to Jesus, into salvation, right? Away from death and into life. So as I close, what does this tell us about how we should act towards others? One is, the more you know, right? It doesn't make you better, right? It just gives you more responsibility to love and serve others, right? The stronger of a Christian you are, the more mature of a Christian you are, the more you know gives you more of a responsibility to love and serve. So if you think you're all that, you've got this Christianity thing figured out, well, then you've got a pretty high bar to get over as far as your behavior goes. You should be constantly loving and serving others, giving up your own desires and your rights in order to love and serve others better. 2, if you're that weaker brother, as I said earlier, if you find yourself just constantly judging others and constantly stumbling over what other people do, maybe get out a mirror. Say, where do I need to grow, right? Instead of trying to take the splinter out of my brother's eye, maybe I should try and see if there's a plank in my own, right? And then finally, and this is where when I was halfway through writing this, I realized, man, I'm bad at this, right? Because now that I've got kids and now that I am a pastor, I realize there's a lot more eyeballs on me. And there's a lot more times where I have to give up my wants and my desires in order to love and serve others better. And so this is something I struggle with, right? I've just been finding myself more and more, and as I was writing this, I was looking at my own life and saying like, oh man, I'm really not preaching out to you guys, I'm preaching to myself. Because I would be lying if I said I had this down perfect, right? There are times where I want to be selfish and I want to exercise my rights and my desires and my wants instead of going out of my way to love and serve others. So, I am working on this. This is a sermon right back to myself because I'm seeing more and more that this is an area where I can grow a lot. And so if you see me doing something where you say, hey, I don't think you're really loving or serving others well. I think you're living selfishly. That's an opportunity to come have a conversation with me. Call me out a little bit. Because I don't want to be that person. I want to be like Paul. I want to be the person that can say, I will become all things to all men so that I might save some, right? And so I just want to close with this, right? This is the question I've had to ask myself this week, and And honestly, I got really convicted writing this and didn't want to give this sermon because I'm like, man, I'm the last one that should be up here giving this sermon because I see this is a struggle in my own heart, in my own life. Are you willing to give up your own wants, your own desires, your own rights to love and serve others? So I know that's something I need to work on. And normally I would give you, here's the 1, 2, 3s and ABCs of how to do it, but I'm still figuring this out. So I propose over the next weeks and months, we try to figure this out together and just one step at a time, love and serve each other better. So let me just close in prayer as the band comes up. Lord, I thank you that you are a gracious God, that you have mercy for us, that you love us and take care of us, that even when we mess up, you're offering forgiveness again and again. So I pray that you would just give us the awareness to see the areas we're being selfish, or the areas that we need to grow, and show us the ways that we can change in order to reach others for you, the way that we can share your gospel more effectively. The Lord, walk with us. Help us shine that mirror to ourselves to show us where we can change. We ask all this in Jesus' name. Amen.
Everybody, please stand.
Things are getting real, Jesus take the wheel. Only way I'm getting to the other side. Days are getting dark, life's a little hard. Blinded but I'm trying not to lose sight. I don't got this, I know you got this. Yeah, yeah, yeah. And I believe it before I see it. Yeah, yeah, yeah. I know you're gonna see me through it. If anybody can, you can do it. Gotta know in the trial and the plain fire and the rain, you're gonna see me through it. You're gonna see me through it. If anybody can, you can do it. And whenever my hope runs away, you save the day, you're gonna see me through it. When the sky falls, who am I gonna call? The one who put it up there in the first place. Full-scale attack, devil on my back. Better lace him up and go put on my game face. I don't got this, I know you got this. Yeah, yeah, yeah. And I believe it before I see it. Yeah, yeah, yeah. I know you're gonna see me through it. If anybody can, you can do it. Gotta know in the trial and the plain fire and the rain, you're gonna see me through it. You're gonna see me through it. If anybody can, you can do it. And whenever my hope runs away, you save the day, you're gonna see me through it. Our God is bigger than all our problems, the only one who knows how to solve them. So if you're sitting in the back, rock bottom, prayers in the air if you got them. Our God is bigger than all our problems, the only one who knows how to solve them. So if you're sitting in the back, rock bottom, prayers in the air, cause I know you're gonna see me through it. If anybody can, you can do it. Gotta know in the trial and the plain fire and the rain, you're gonna see me through it. You're gonna see me through it. If anybody can, you can do it. And whenever my hope runs away, you save the day, you're gonna see me through it. Yeah, yeah, yeah. I know you're gonna see